my very first Bobby Bowen show, and I chose one of my favorite singers, one of my favorite all-time traveling buddies. Traveled with him for about 7 years. One of the greatest singers in any kind of music. It's Kid Humphrey right there.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
You're my guinea pig.
Well, that's all right.
I don't mean to call you a pig, but just but you're my first. And I don't have the radio voice, TV voice, I've never done this before. I'm always on the other side of the mic, when people interview us, so it's kind of strange for me to be able to do this with you. But I just wanted to do something, just to kind of give the folks some history about where, musicians in the music business, how they got their start, start from the very beginning back to childhood on up to present day, I mean, you think we can squeeze
a long time ago, Bob.
I know. Think we can squeeze all that in about 30, 45 minutes?
Yeah, I think we can.
Well, Kent, just tell everybody where you were born and just kind of go from there. And we'll talk about your musical influences.
Cool. Well, I was born in a little town in Kentucky called Cadiz. It's down in western Kentucky near Paducah. And my grandfather was a Methodist preacher, and my dad always played piano and sang and was in different quartets. And so I grew up traveling before I was even singing. We were on the road as a kid every weekend and traveling with him, and kind of got in my blood then, just wanting to do it, even before I actually started singing. So I was used to the travel part of it. But then as I got a little older, I want to say I was nine years old with the first group that I kind of sang with. My dad had the two guys that were singing with him over, and the one guy was having trouble with the baritone part, and I was in the other room singing it. So Dad took a chance without trying to embarrass the dude, and said, "Hey, Ken, come here and sing this part." And I did, and so that was kind of where, shortly after that, I kind of started singing with them as just a little kid, and that is actually kind of how I got started.
You was like 9 years old.
I was 9. I think it was 9, yeah.
And you could sing baritone at 9 years old?
Well, let's just say it wasn't real thick and deep. Of course, that didn't happen for a lot of years.
Oh, yeah. You've always had a pretty high voice, but I mean, you can sing just about any part, but that's mainly your lead to high range.
Yeah, that's pretty much been my range. And of course, as you get a little older, that top end kind of goes away a little bit. But,
oh yeah, yes, it definitely has.
Luckily, I can still stay in that range. Maybe not sing everything quite as high, but.
So listening to your dad sing, and you pretty much knew that that's what you kind of wanted to do when you was that young.
Yeah, I definitely did. So I traveled with him in a couple of different groups that he was with throughout my teenage years. And it's funny that my first professional job was with the Dixie Melody Boys. Mm-hmm. And I just last week, Ed O'Neill called me, and during his time kind of down during this, he's actually writing a book. So so he called me and asked me if I would just write a little short story about my time with the group and the band and that era of time with him. So I kind of went back and recapped this whole thing. I was 17 singing with my dad's group, and we were in our hometown of Greensburg, Kentucky. We opened a concert for the Dixie Melody Boys, and I got up the nerve that night to talk to Ron Wells, their steel guitar player. And just, I was scared to death, but I was like, hey man, if you ever, this is what I want to do. So if you ever need anybody, I would love the opportunity to audition. And I'm a 17-year-old kid. I thought, probably never going to happen, But only a week later, the guy that was singing lead gave his resignation.
Wow.
So Ron called me and said, you still interested? I'm like, yeah, I'm interested. So, of course, I still had my senior year of high school left, and but my dad being in music, he had always had dreams of traveling too, and so he and my mom were very supportive. So he drove me to Ypsilanti, Michigan. I auditioned there on a Thursday night after their show there, about midnight. He had offered me the job, and so I accepted. And he said, "All right, have all your stuff packed and ready to be on the bus in Louisville, Kentucky Sunday night."
Wow.
Had 3 days to say goodbye to everybody and get ready, and
that was pretty quick.
It was pretty quick. It was pretty quick.
So,
but I wouldn't trade it, man.
Oh no, it's kind of a similar story with me too. I was 19 years old, but kind of the same kind of thing. You know, people always see people on stage, and they see, you know, a little success with the music being on the charts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Traveling all in a bus and all that. And the first thing they probably think is, boy, those people, they must be making a lot of money. And do you remember how much your first paycheck was?
I sure do. $102.50.
$102.50.
Yep. That was my first paycheck.
Of course, that was what, 82?
Yes.
1982. That was pretty good money for a 17-year-old kid, wasn't it?
I wasn't used to having to pay anything out of that, so I thought that was all free and clear. You know, I grew up pretty fast.
Yeah.
But
you know, my first paycheck, I think, was $40. I think that was my first.
$40. Well, there you go.
I got paid $20 a date. If we sang one day a week on that weekend, I got $20.
$20.
I think we did 2 that first weekend I was with them. I got $40, man. So if we did 3 and I made 60, I thought I was in heaven.
That was a big weekend.
Oh man, yeah.
We had nowhere to go but up, though, Bob. Right?
That's true. That is true. So, talk about your first recording with the Dixie Melody Boys, and there was a song on your very first recording with them that did pretty good on the charts. What was that song?
Yeah, it did. My very first recording was I'm trying to think of the name of the actual record. It wasn't the name of the single, but the name of the single was called the Antioch Church Choir. And Ed had found that song. There's one thing Ed was very good at, is finding songs, great songs to record. And he found this song, and he just said, "I know this is going to be something special." So I'll never forget, I was in, I don't remember the name. You may remember the name of the old Oak Ridge Boys studio in Hendersonville. Was it Acorn?
Acorn, yeah.
Yeah. We recorded that single there. And I remember I was in the studio singing the song, and I'm 17 years old, still singing through my nose. You know, it was just, it was something. But I remember looking from the recording studio to the control room, and there stood Dwayne Allen, the Oak Ridge Boys. But he was standing there, and I'll never forget it. It was quite intimidating.
I bet.
But, you know, we recorded that record, and that song went on to be a #1 song, and actually was the only #1 song that the group ever had in all of its 50-some years.
Really?
Yep.
The only one.
Mm-hmm.
So wasn't that song recorded by another group?
It was recorded by
out Texas.
Yeah,
Mercy River Boys. Yeah.
They cut the song first. Yeah, they actually recorded it first, I believe, before we did, and didn't do anything with it. Just an album cut. And so when they had heard the song, and he was pitched it by the writer, but he actually pitched Mercy River's version, I believe.
I think if I remember hearing that version, they had a different line on one of the verses. They said humming in a voice loud and rough, and they said dipping on a can of snuff.
We did.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yep. That was definitely an Ed O'Neill edit. He's like, "We can't go there, boys."
Not in gospel music. You can't do that.
We're going to stay away from that one. I'm a writer. I'll rewrite that line.
That's right. So how many years were you actually with the Dixies?
I was with the Dixies for just about a little over 7 years.
7 years. And there was a change kind of in the middle of all this. Y'all were a Southern Gospel quartet.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed over to more of a country sound, right?
Yeah, it was probably not too long after I was with the group, probably 2 years into my time with the group. And actually, it's funny because when we started to do more of the country style Christian music, everybody assumed that it was the younger guys influencing Ed to move and change. And actually, the truth of that story is it was Ed's idea. He just had this desire to do something a little bit different. And of course, all of us being younger guys at the time and loving that sound, it was something that came very natural to us. So falling into that was really natural. And we, there were no guardrails. There was really nobody else that had ever tried it before. And we honestly didn't even know that we were trying anything other than just musically trying to spread our wings a little bit and do something different. So it was an adventure those 3 to 4 years that we recorded the Good Old Boys record, which is the beginning of the change in musical styles.
Yeah.
Then we recorded Too Much Thunder. And then the album Streetwise was the album that we actually changed the name from Dixie Melody Boys to D&B Band.
Right.
And we recorded Streetwise and Run Little Brother on Benson Records' Green Tree label. So those 2 albums were the only 2 that were actually under the D&B Band name. But the previous 2 were that country style. It maybe progressed quite a bit from Too Much Thunder to Streetwise. But yeah, it was, it was way ahead of its time. And if fans that are out there, I would pretty much all agree that that's what it was. It was just music that was ahead of its time that quite honestly still kind of stands up today.
It does. So how was it actually accepted? When we're doing the change, how was it accepted in the industry?
Well, if you're talking about the Southern gospel industry, the industry itself didn't accept it very well. At the beginning, they did, but as we progressed, we kind of went further than their boundaries, and I understand that. It was just something different, so something new, and we kind of knew that we had grown kind of outside of the scope of Southern gospel. We still had fans inside of Southern gospel music, but that industry as a whole was not really, where we were at musically anymore. So, I mean, you had some fans that were outwardly very supportive and outwardly very much against you, and it was an unusual time. But that was back in the day when PTL was on the air in Charlotte, and we played that show a lot, and we were able to develop a whole new following of fans through that really sustained us as we kind of grew and did some different things, and it kind of gave us the opportunity to have a whole new lease on the musical career for the D&B Band for those years. But it ultimately became a financial drain on Ed. Yeah. And it was just, he felt it was time for that to kind of transition back to the Dixie Melody Boys style. And that was the world that he knew, and that he was very well respected there, and he did a great job at it. So, but those 4 albums that we did, man, I wouldn't trade anything for it. We learned a lot. We were able to maybe start a new genre of music, and we had no idea we were doing it, but really we did. Back in the day.
A lot of people think that Midsouth actually started it, but really y'all
did. Yeah, really,
we get the credit for it, but actually you guys did.
We really did, and there was not. You guys probably, when it was Midsouth, when you guys started doing the Christian country thing, you were able to take that title, Christian country, and do it.
Well, there was no Christian country when it was D&B Band.
Right. And so we had some airplay on Southern Gospel. We had some airplay on, CCM, but not enough either to really call either one of those home, But yeah, I remember we did a few shows with Midsouth. Yeah. Back before when I was still with D&B, and those were fun because our musical styles were very, very similar.
You guys are a little more progressive than we were, a little heavier than we were, but we were soon to head in that direction, though. And y'all were a big influence on us too.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were. We'd been doing it for a few years, so we had definitely progressed into more of the CCM style of country at that. But it was always fun, and then as we stopped touring at the end of '87, I believe 1987 was the last year that we toured as the DMB band. And it was rough walking away from that, because that was just as much as I loved music in general, those years that we were doing that style was just really who I felt musically, who I was. And so when we said goodbye to that and put a bow on it and wrapped it up, it was tough. It was a tough few years. And it was actually 4 years that I was between D&B and the next opportunity that came along. So it was a long 4 years.
So what did you do in those 4 years?
Well, these long-haired, straggly boys called Midsouth called me up. And, I'll never forget it. My son Jordan had just been born, and we were living in Pennsylvania, where my wife Marie's parents were, and her dad pastors a church up there. And if you heard her tell the story, she would say, I knew as soon as the phone rang and I heard who it was. She said, I knew we were moving to Nashville. So, and we did. And it was, for me, to be able to be a part of both of those bands, still is. I'm humbled to be able to have been a part of both bands that really both bands blazed their own trails, and really created a fan base for that style of music. So for me to be able to have been a part of both those groups, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we were so glad that you were able to be a part of our group. It kind of changed the sound, the dynamics of the group. We were, before you came, we were leaning toward country, but we were still hanging on to the Southern gospel side also.
Right.
But and shortly after you came, our sound changed. We started sharing the leads. You and I did, and eventually you became the lead, and I became your background singer.
This is why we went out of business, Bob.
No, that's not it. But when I was a little intimidated when you came, because I knew such a great singer you was, and I'm like, man, I don't want to be singing all the songs when I got Kent here. He's got to sing. He's got to do some singing.
No, listen. So I had two of kind of those, not as songwriters, but as singing partners, those Lennon McCartney kind of relationships. With the DMB band, it was me and Alan, and with Midsouth, it was you and I. And there's just something about the timbres of the voices, although we're completely different singers.
Yeah.
There's something about our voices, the way the blend is, that just works. And yeah, it's hard to explain. I don't know how to explain it, but
it's just always been good,
Yeah, and comfortable. And you and I could pick up a guitar tonight and go do a show if we needed to. We're just comfortable with each other, So
I'm sure there's some people out there that wish we would.
Well, who knows? Maybe one of these days we will do that again.
Yeah, we can do it again.
But it was, it was intimidating for me too. The vocal part I felt good about, but I had played acoustic a little bit, just a tiny little bit.
Yeah.
But I really was not ready for the job of playing acoustic that came along with that position as well. So I remember when I moved to town, I'm like, I had 2 weeks to really learn how to play. I hit up an old friend of ours, Bobby All, and he said, listen, I've got some sessions over the next couple of weeks. Just come sit in the studio with me and just watch me and just get comfortable. And he said, and don't ever be afraid to use a capo. That saved my life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but watching him and those 2 weeks, I wouldn't say I was great after those 2 weeks, but it was the knowledge that I gained just sitting watching him was priceless.
Well, you actually sang with us before you were actually hired full time.
That's true.
Back in '88, September of '88.
Yeah, for about
a major
6 months, I guess.
Major bad thing happened back in '88. Robbie McGee had a scuba diving accident.
Yeah.
It left him paralyzed, and we were like, okay, we've got this weekend coming up in Florida, and we don't have a tenor singer. We don't have a keyboard player. What are we going to do? So we called Kent.
Yeah, you called me, and I immediately said, yes, I'll be there, and started to work on the travel. The funny thing about that weekend was we were living in Pennsylvania then, and I had a group from North Carolina called the Anchorman.
Yeah.
Called and asked me if I would come and play bass for them that weekend, and I told them I would. That was till I got the call from you guys. And then I remember calling them. They were at a Phillies game. They were already in town, and I said, "Hey guys, I need to bail. I need to go help some friends out." So they were very gracious, and I hopped on a plane and flew down to Panama City Beach and got off the plane. Robbie's wife Vanessa met me. We went straight to the hospital and saw Robbie and spent a little time there, and then went over to the City Auditorium, I believe it was there.
We had about 30 minutes to rehearse.
It was quick.
It was rough too, wasn't it?
Let's just be glad there was no social media back that night.
Ooh, I hope nobody videoed it. It's out there somewhere. But we made it. We made it through, and I think you traveled with us for what, 3 or 4 months?
It was 4 to 6 months, something like that. Yeah,
like that, yeah.
Flying out every weekend, and that was.
But it got better and better.
Tenor. I was singing tenor then up there with Robbie, and that was a challenge.
Yes.
But it was fun. It was fun, and as soon as he was able to get back out on the road, I hated to say goodbye and thought probably that was it, but that wasn't it.
Nope.
And I was able to join the group just a couple of years later.
Yeah,
so
we're so glad you did, man.
Hey, but it was my privilege for sure to be a part of it. Definitely.
We had some success with Midsouth too, as far as songs charting. One in particular that crossed over into secular pop radio. Talk about that a little bit.
Crazy. That was crazy. I remember. I don't know if you remember where we learned the song, but we were heading to Cincinnati, Ohio, to sing at Landmark Church. And on the bus that night, Robbie said, "Hey, I want to pitch this new song that I wrote with a couple of guys from Warner Brothers," where we recorded. And he kind of laid it out to us there, and we kind of sang it with acoustic guitar a couple of times. We're like, yeah, I think this is good. And so we did record it, and Al Perkins produced that record for us. The Give What It Takes record, great producer. Loved.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things too, Bobby. I think you take things for granted. I think I took Al Perkins for granted on that recording.
We all did.
He was a genius.
Yeah.
He did a fantastic job. But he brought that song to life with the hook line musically. And so we recorded it. We thought, this is a great song, but it wasn't slated to be a single at all.
No.
And so we got a call from Mike Smith, who was our manager at the time. He said, "Hey, fellas, look, Warner Reprise, the pop label in LA, has heard one of your songs and wants to pitch it to pop radio." And immediately the wheels started turning. What song are they talking about? And they said, "Without You, I Haven't Got a Prayer." And I'm like, that's really cool, but I would never have guessed it would be that song. Mm-hmm. But something about that song caught one of the executives' ears, and so they partnered up with our Warner Reprise Christian label in Nashville and went after it, pitching it to pop radio. And I don't remember, Bob. Did it get up to the 25 or something?
23, I think.
23?
Yeah.
On the top 30, top 40. So that's, I mean, we were thrilled. It got our music into a lot of places and all around the world, actually.
It did. It actually was on the charts with, I mean, a lot of our influences growing up. The Eagles,
Yeah.
James Taylor, Chicago,
Sting,
well, Stevie Wonder, and Madonna. Madonna weren't my influence, but they were all on that chart, same chart, which was pretty cool to see Mid-South right there in the middle of all those.
I still have that chart hanging up and highlighted with
very, very, very cool part of our careers for sure. And we also did a video that was on CMT and VH1, and I mean it was everywhere.
It was, man. I remember it was back in the day when they had Midsouth, you know, where it was just a classical type music version of all the pop radio hits. And, you know, I'd have different people from all over the country, friends and family, go, dude, I was in Kroger tonight and I heard your stinking song.
I did too. I was in the Kroger at a restaurant or somewhere, and I'd hear it start playing. I just wanted to just make everybody stop and listen. That's our song up there.
Yeah, it was definitely a proud moment, that's for sure. And I'll tell myself a story that I was driving from North Carolina to Pennsylvania to visit. We were going up to visit Marie's family, and we're going through Baltimore. I don't even remember the radio station now, but it was back when radio stations pretty much made their own playlists and, you know, their own local DJs played all night. It wasn't syndicated or anything. So I remember I called, I got the number and I called this pop station that I was listening to and requested, hey, how about playing that song, Thou You Haven't Got a Prayer? And it was like, yeah, that's a great song. Hang on just a minute. I was like, okay. And so she went back, he introduced it on the air, and she came back and she said, hey, can I get your name? Of course, I used David instead of Kent because that's my first name. She was like, yeah, that's not the name I expected. But she said, you're the guy that sings that song, aren't you? And I'm like, you got me, ma'am, you are good.
How did they know?
She just detected the tone of my voice. And I said, you busted me, I'm sorry. She was like, no. And she was very kind to say, I love the song, blah, blah, blah. But needless to say, it's the last time I ever requested my own song.
I'm sure they all do that.
Probably so.
I know I always did when, you know, we had songs out on Southern Gospel Radio. I'd call every station I could. Hey, will you play Down by the Tabernacle by the Midsouth Boys? Sure, we'll get that
voice a little bit.
Yeah. Can I ask who's calling? This is Cecil.
That was what you'd always use.
Yeah,
Cecil.
But the success of the song and everything, and it got to a point where it was going to take us to a whole new level in the music business. Talk about that, and it was kind of a letdown. What happened as a result of all that? So talk about that a little bit.
You know, we when you get to that point on the charts, you kind of think things are going to continue to grow, and it was continuing to go up the charts. For whatever reason, Warner Reprise basically decided that. Well, actually, I take that back. I think it was the Warner Alliance side. Anyway, the two labels didn't come together with an agreement on pushing forward.
Yeah.
And so they kind of stopped the promotion when it got there to 23, and so it eventually, over the next few weeks, you know, tailed off the charts. You know, we were excited because you know they told us that we're at 23. We get 4 more spots. We break the top 20. Now all of a sudden we're doing Letterman and Leno and all of the shows that were big back in the day. You know, which would have been a huge, you know, leap, another realm of the business. But yeah, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. You know, and I've given lots of thought to it over the years, you know, as to why. But you know, that is where that we have to just trust God's sovereign hand. That maybe we just weren't prepared to handle what comes with that. I don't know why it was, but for whatever reason it just wasn't meant to happen. So it was disappointing as an artist that it kind of, you know, went that way. But it did, and we still enjoyed a lot of success from the song for the next quite a few months after that. Led to a another album that we did with Warner Brothers that Larry Stewart with Restless Heart produced for us. And so it was just one of those things that you look back and try to figure out why you never will, but you just have to know that God's plan is our ultimate best is his. So we just trust that, that just wasn't in the plan for us at that time.
Of course, all good things come to an end, and 1997 was our last year as Midsouth, and it was we kind of the label dropped us, after that second project, and things just kind of started going down from that point on, and we just kind of knew it was time to call it quits.
Yeah, it's funny. Our old manager, Mike Smith, called me just a couple weeks ago, and we'll chat every 6 months or so for a little while, and we always go back and rehash and relook at it and talk about, the days. And that's one of those things, Christian country music at itself, back in that day when Mid-South took off, and the genre took off fast. And a radio market was tried to be created to keep up with it. And what happens in that rush to make that happen is you begin to add artists that maybe aren't quality artists for radio play, which then pulls the level of excellence down, which helps kind of stunt the growth of the industry. And that's kind of what happened, because there just weren't enough artists at the time to supply radio for it to be its own genre.
Yeah.
There were some great syndicated shows, 1-2 hour shows that were together at that time that were probably the flagship of what Christian country was, but there weren't enough stations to support it. And once that foundation kind of started to crumble, there was no outlet really. Social media wasn't around back then. Mm-hmm. So there was no way to get the music to the people. And we just kind of saw Christian country kind of slide down in its popularity. But I mean, you remember the days that every major record label in town was on board with it and supporting it, and had the artists playing music they wanted to be played on Christian country radio. And it was a buzz in the air for quite a few years. But just were never able to get enough quality artists to stay at that level that the genre could stick around as a radio format.
Yeah, we had, the record label dropped us, and then shortly after that, our management dropped us and booking agent. And we just saw the writing on the wall. We had one date booked for the next year, 98, in Canada. And it was like, what are we going to do?
A date.
Yeah, we can't make it. So we just knew that it was time to.
Yeah. Anything, something like that you love comes to an end. It's, hard to let go. And so that was 2 bands I was with, both of them for 7 years. J.D. Sumner used to introduce Ed Hill, and he would say, Ed Hill, most successful manager in gospel music. He successfully managed more groups out of business than any other. And I began to think of myself as that way. I'm like, wait a second here. There's a common denominator here.
That's not what it is at all. So after Mid-South, what did you do?
I actually went on the road with an evangelist for 5 years and did music in his crusades for about 5 years of doing that. And then my wife, myself, and my sister-in-law, Becky, we had a trio called the Humphrey Trio that we traveled for almost 2 years in that form. And I had always said, after that, that, I love traveling. That's all I really ever wanted to do. And I would never be on staff at a church. But the next step for me was I became a worship pastor for the next 14 years after that. So, but great experience. I enjoyed almost every minute of it. Not every minute of it, but almost every minute of it.
We actually reunited again and sang for about 3 or 4 years during that time. Heritage Road.
That was a whole nother era.
Yeah.
And that was great. And that was actually while I was in the era of being a worship pastor.
Yeah.
That we were doing that. But we For the way we did it, we were not a full-time
No.
group by any means, but we probably did 2 weekends a month that we were out on the road.
Yeah. And it was the same classic Mid-South sound, you know. So just kind of carried it on.
Yeah, we did. That was still, you know, those records I still go back and listen to as well.
Oh yeah, they're good.
They stand up, you know.
They do.
We're prejudiced, but
well, yeah. but then after I decided to venture off on my own and do a family thing, then you were still a worship pastor during that time, and you had taken a job as on a staff in Dallas, around Dallas area too.
Yeah, I spent 13 years in Ohio between two different churches there, and then moved to Dallas for a year. At the church there. Yeah.
But then you're there about a year. Was that what it was?
I was there for exactly 1 year at that.
Then
church.
You moved back to Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Yep, we did. We it was kind of a time in our life when we're like, we don't have to go anywhere. So where do we want to go? And Nashville was just kind of where we wanted to get back to. So we moved back to Hendersonville.
And so, what's been going on with you the past couple of years? What's been happening?
Well, when we moved back to Hendersonville, that was the year that you called me up and said, "Why don't we do an acoustic tour, the two of us?" And so we did. We did about 4 months together, I guess.
3 to 4, and we did about 100 dates.
It was a lot of dates, man.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a lot of dates, but it was
great. I enjoyed it. I want to do it again too.
I would love to do that again
before we get too old, man.
Well, we better get on it.
We better. So,
but yeah, that was a blast. So we did that, and I kind of got my musical juices flowing again, you know. And, so it was in that time that McCrae Dove, who had a group called the Dove Brothers in Southern Gospel Music, he also was the guy that took my place in the Dixie Melody Boys when I left. He called me up and said, "Hey, would you, if I can get all the guys together, would you be interested, or would you be willing to do a one-night reunion with the D&B band?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great. Good luck, you know, getting up with everybody." I mean, we've lost touch with everybody. Alan and I stayed in touch a little bit, Olin and I, but some of the other guys just had not get in touch with each other. But long and behold, he got a hold of everybody, and everybody's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we did, and this was in. Actually, I was looking at this date just last night. It was I saw a video on YouTube from that concert reunion show. It was in 2013, so it's already been 7 years.
Wow!
But we did the show, and we just had a blast doing it, and it's kind of like riding a bike. It all came back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So we all decided, hey, we love doing this so much that everybody said, we'll take a year, or we'll take a week's vacation every year, and we'll just go out on the road, and we'll play this D&B band music and just have some fun. And we did that for about 2 more years, and then we decided, let's get serious about this. And you know, I think we still got some music in us to share, some fresh stuff. So we decided that at that point we would just change the name from the D&B band to Jackson Heights. Jackson Heights was a little community right outside of Kinston, North Carolina, which is where the Dixie Melody Boys were from. And when we all joined the group, that little community is where we all lived, in Jackson Heights. So when we changed the name, that's what we changed the name to, Jackson Heights. So we've been doing that now almost 7 years, and having a blast doing it.
Still not full time, but still, you know, kind of.
No, we actually do 1 weekend a month on average. We try to do 1 weekend a month out on the road, and it's fun. We carry, you know, full lights and sound production. It's the way we always wanted to do it back in the day and couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
And now we got all this equipment and we're old and we can't lift it. But we're having a blast. We're having a blast doing it. And
I tell you what, y'all still sound like you did 20, 30 years ago. I mean,
no, thanks, man.
It's still great sound. Yeah, everything y'all do is very professional. I mean, it's
Well, thanks.
Sound, lights, just everything is just top notch.
Well, thanks. We do work really hard at it. I mean, one of Alan's friends in North Carolina said, "Dude, you're 61, dude. Now you choose to put all this work into," and he's just like, "Man, this is something we love, and it's not work, to us. But if we're going to do it, we're going to do it to the best of our ability." And so we do work really hard at that, and I appreciate you saying that. Thanks, Bob.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean it. We're about to get done here, so I appreciate you doing this for me, Kent.
Man, it's been a lot of fun, dude. I hope you continue this on and
I hope so too.
Talk to some other folks. I think it'll be interesting for people.
It's a little easier for me to do it with you because I know a lot of the past and everything, because I spent a lot of past with you. So,
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of your stories, road stories and things, but just share one of the craziest, funniest road stories you can think of. Share it with the folks.
Well, of course, between you and I, it would have to be the old Shoney story, which was,
oh, yeah.
We've had a lot, but that one got a lot of attention, and it was, to make a long story really short, we were in the Shoney's in Little Rock, Arkansas after a show, and some guys had too much to drink and were leaving without paying, and Bobby just tried to step in a nice way and say, "Hey, man, we're the Mid-South." He wanted to say wrestlers, but he never got that far, and the guy punched him right in the nose.
Yes.
And then a guy tried to attack you from behind, and Joe grabbed him, and we were calling the cops, and Robbie was already on the bus, and all this went down, and the guy bit you in the side. Oh, we could go to
the worst pain I've ever endured. Oh, my goodness.
Listen, I laughed after it was over, but you could tell you were in pain. No doubt. I didn't know.
I bet the whole restaurant heard me scream.
But, there's so many stories like that.
Oh, man. I remember you told stories from when you was with the Dixie Melody Boys about, I don't want to knock Ed or anything, but a lot of old Southern Gospel owners and managers were this way. They didn't want to spend money on hotel rooms.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So any chance you guys could get cleaned up, you jumped at it.
Anywhere from church bathroom sinks to, we've gone as far as filling a bucket and wrapping a tarp around a tree at a fair.
Man,
In a shower.
You told me a story about y'all were setting up outside somewhere, and this guy asked if y'all wanted a shower, and y'all all, yeah. Probably hadn't showered in 3 or 4 days, and so you hopped in the back of his truck, and where did he take you? Tell everybody about that.
So yeah, it was a little amphitheater. It was like a home-built amphitheater stage, and believe it or not, the backstage of the amphitheater was where he lived. It was like a little 2-bedroom house, and but he didn't let us shower there. He was like, "No, come on, no, grab your stuff, come on out here." Well, instead of driving toward town, we started driving out in this field. We're like, where are we going? So we got almost to the end of this field, and up above the ridge was I wouldn't say a highway, but it was a road. And I'm looking around, and all of a sudden there was. I saw it sticking up out of the ground. It was like a hose stuck on a pole with one knob. Of course, that meant no hot water. And I mean, no curtain, no nothing. It was just like, he's like, "All right, boys, have at it." Of course, when you want to shower, you'll take a shower.
So how did you hide yourself from people seeing you? I mean, was there anybody around?
No. I mean, we were literally in a field, so it was like nobody was around, but quite unusual.
See, people don't realize what people have to go through sometimes, especially in gospel music.
It's all glamour, Bob. It's all glamour.
All lights and glamour, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of stories we could tell, but we don't have enough time to get to them. Maybe we can do this again and just tell some funny stories. I think
that'd be fun.
Would enjoy that side of it. But anyway, thanks, Kent, so much, man.
Hey, thank you, Bobby. I appreciate it, man. It's always good to get to hang out with you and listen. I'm proud of what you guys are doing, you and your family, and God's blessed you guys. And, I'm just you're fabulous. You and Becky, fabulous parents, and just what you've done with your kids, and just keep going, man. Love to hear you sing like always. So thanks for asking me to be first one on this series.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that very much. It means a whole lot coming from you, because I've always looked up to you over the years, and you're like a brother to me.
No doubt about it, buddy. We are like brothers.
Brother from another mother. Love you, Kent. Thanks so much. Tell Marie we
love you too. All right. Thanks, Bobby.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.